she briefly linked up with the radical political group, the Black Panthers.
We want black power!
And she took an African name, Shaka, which means woman of fire. But by '72, she was back into singing with the established multiracial funk band, Rufus.
Once you get started,
there was nobody who had a sound like Rufus. The band was tight, but then to add to that was this woman. It seemed like she came out of nowhere, Chaka Khan, with all this energy, all this character.
everybody party hardy to get back in the groove.
She was the flashpoint, she was the center, she was just it on that stage.
With Shaka on board, Rufus were soon in the charts. But they were being billed as Rufus featuring Chaka Khan. It was inevitable she'd be offered a solo contract.
She knew the importance and the value to her career of an anthem, of a defining song.
With a little help from 14-year-old Whitney Houston on backing vocals, her first solo hit in '78 became a disco anthem.
Well, actually, the song kind of wrote itself, and then we realized it should be her singing it.
That dance beat is pretty powerful, and you always need a big voice.
When we heard her voice on it, we said, yes. Yeah, it's like some things you just know, and it was just very clearly, you know, a hit record.
You know, when you hear her sing about a powerful woman, you look at her and go, no, she's talking about what she's living.
It's a little bit like Gloria Gaynor's I Will Survive. It's very liberating for women. Every woman in their life at some point has said, I'm every woman.
You look at Chaka Khan, you know this is a woman who calls her own shots. This is a woman who doesn't do anything that she doesn't think is right. So when she sings these songs, you believe it.
Anything you want done, baby. She's like a vocal acrobat. She can do so many things.
I'm Every Woman established Chaka as a disco diva. But there was one slight problem.
The band, Rufus, still had a contractual commitment to the record company, so they had to fulfill that. But at the same time, she was going to go off and do her solo thing. So there was a certain amount of music industry politics involved.
Despite a huge bust-up, Chaka had to agree to do one more album with Rufus. Not in the studio, but live on stage.
It was still a dynamic record, and then produced, yes, that most enduring of their hits from that period, Ain't Nobody.
But within months, her solo career was back on track with another #1 hit. But behind the scenes, Chaka was struggling.
Chaka had a bad drug problem that dogged her over a couple of decades.
It distracted her from her artistry, and she could have done so much more with her life and career.
If she'd managed to keep her personal life together, she should have been the sort of inheritor, successor of Aretha Franklin. Feel for you.
I'm Every Woman remains one of the biggest disco anthems. But Chaka made it so much her own that only another diva like Whitney Houston would ever dare to cover it. And even the most powerful woman in TV wanted it as her song.
Oprah called on the telephone. She says, you know, Val, I really could hear that song as my theme song for the Oprah show. I said, you know, Oprah, I could really hear that too. And she went on and made it her theme song for 2 years, so we were really happy about that.
Chaka herself, though, moved on. She's done soul, blues, and jazz, keeping her at the top of her game.
It kind of moved through disco and kept on going. Even after quote-unquote disco had sort of disappeared, she was still a force in black music.
She constantly changed her sound, evolved and changed.
I consider myself a fusion artist. I love mixing stuff all together. mean, I just want to enjoy singing.
Chaka did disco when disco was hot, and when disco was finished, they went on and did whatever else was happening. Chaka Khan, she's still doing her thing now, you know? Disco's been done for a while, but Chaka's not.
July 1978. The disco boom is at its peak, but it's now more Saturday Night Fever than I Will Survive. And just when disco was about to die on its arse, an ambitious young Italian-American arrived in New York. Her career would encompass and transcend all the queens who went before her. She would become an enduring global superstar who's come back again and again to disco. Who's that girl? Madonna, of course, the queen of reinvention.
I came to New York to be a dancer, and I came to New York to dance in a company professionally.
She was determined to make an impression. She came in one Saturday with a sweater which was cut way down to the back and held together with a safety pin about a foot wide and off of one shoulder. Now, she was about 16 and a half or 17. And I looked at her back and I thought, that girl will do something someday.
In New York, everybody was doing disco, so Madonna had to be different.
She was not doing dance music at that time. She was working on other kinds of sounds, and she was more rock and roll influenced.
She said, I have two friends here from Michigan, and they're writing some rock songs, and I'd like to be a rock singer, she said one day, and I thought, fine, you know. I didn't believe one word of this.
But a rock and roll rebel wasn't what record companies were looking for. And there were more pressing matters, like paying the bills.
I went to an audition for a world tour for Patrick Hernandez.
Patrick Hernandez! He was one of the biggest stars of Eurodisco. And Madonna applied to be his backing dancer.
He was doing a world tour and he was looking for girls to do backup singing and dancing and go around the world, and I thought that'd be great.
She said, we made the audition and I'm going to Paris next week. And I never saw her after that.
They told Madonna at that time that, you know, that what they planned to do was have her be a part of a troupe, of a revue, and then pull her out of it and mold her into a Donna Summer type of entertainer.
Might have to think about this.
Anytime anybody's ever wanted to mold Madonna into anything, it's always been unsuccessful.
They didn't really know what to do with me, and they were really busy with Patrick, and I just got really impatient, and I came back to New York eventually after being there for 6 months.
But while she'd been away, something had changed. The charts had been flooded with a load of old disco tosh. And the great American public could take no more. In 1979, chanting "Disco sucks," fans of old-fashioned rock and roll gathered at Comiskey Baseball Stadium in Chicago and blew up a massive pile of disco records. Disco was officially over, in the mainstream at least. And anything which was out of favor with the mainstream was okay for our rebel princess.
When she came back from France, then she really started dealing seriously in dance music, and she started making demos and shopping demos of songs that were dance songs.
In New York, the underground club scene was still going strong, even though nobody dared to call it disco anymore.
People moving quickly away from that term, disco, to club music, which was a phrase that was being used as a substitute in the camouflage effect. And the music was evolving out of what was traditionally disco into other forms, and that's when you had those different things going on. And Madonna was part of that.
Madonna used to go around giving everybody her tapes. She was trying to get a break.
She was the kind of woman at that time who would do anything that she needed to do to make it.
But Madonna would make her own decisions about who she wanted to work with.
First met Madonna when I was the DJ at the Funhouse in New York, and she came in with a record company representative, full of energy, happy to be in the place. walked right into my DJ booth and stood there and introduced herself.
Madonna's first record deal was with the dance label Sire, and her music was aimed directly at the clubbers. She was all ready to go, and there was only one place to launch herself.
Studio 54, private party for the 15 years anniversary of Fiorucci.
So in this Fiorucci event at Studio, Madonna performed one of the first times ever.
I actually booked Madonna to be the star of the evening, and my boss Fiorucci didn't want nothing to do with it because she was completely unknown to the public, and they wanted the Jennifer Beals from Flashdance because Flashdance had just came out. And I said, no, Madonna, Madonna, and they were like, I had a huge cake made out in rubber, and Madonna popped out of the cake and jumped.
I can remember her singing at Studio, like very fabulous.
But that night, I almost could see a switch because everybody was gagging over her. Grace was there looking at her, and everybody was there.
Madonna's early hits, like Everybody in 1982, surfaced in the dance charts, not the pop charts.
She was very clear in wanting to keep a very credible club base, but at the same time have a record that would have pop appeal.
So the next step was to cross over into pop. And to do it, she turned back to disco and recruited the man behind classic disco group Chic.
Music was on the cusp of changing from old school to new school. And I was still part of the old school. Madonna was much more new school and going to the techno-based dance music.
By the time Holiday came along in 1984, disco had been out of favor for 4 years. And the music had been a bit, well, boring. When Madonna arrived, people could dance and party again. Madonna is the ultimate embodiment of disco. And as she reinvented herself and her music, she's always remained true, keeping her finger firmly on the pulse of clubs, fashions, and sex. And that's why she's still a global superstar.
Her instincts for dance music, which are crucial for a pop artist, all come from directed observation of being a club dancer, of knowing DJs, of watching crowds, and the way that you learn from disco.
She's one of those artists who never forgot about the audience that got her to where she is. Never forgot.
But it's not just Queen Madge who's at it. Disco is still all around us, and it's all thanks to those original Queens of Disco.